Welcome to Cultura Latina. This week we'll travel into one of Venezuela's most rhythmic towns to a soulful and folkloric music festival. Also, we're paying tribute to one of Latin America's most beloved and inspirational musicians. Venezuela is known for its African roots, which are present in its musical rhythms, food, and culture.
On the west coast of Venezuela lies the Caribbean state of Barlovento, home to the Venezuelan drum and dance known as tambor.
Here the people are music lovers. People have instruments at home. They just love music. They have a musical ear, even if they're not musicians. Here, we call this huataca. African Barlovento music is a polyrhythm of tambores, round tambores, and the dance is based on mime, in the sense that the dancers emulate what the singer is saying.
With an almost entirely African Venezuelan population, Barlovento's tambors are a tradition which has been passed on from the first enslaved Africans who were taken hostage to the coastal parts of Venezuela under European colonialism over 400 years ago.
Yo soy hijo de ese amor legalizado y no puedo estar apenado porque negro. Es mi color. Soy negro venezolano con cierta preparación, tengo una religión y he sido buen ciudadano. Soy humilde provinciano, pero no soy inferior, porque Cristo el Redentor a nadie le habló de raza y entonces mundo que pasa porque negro. Es mi color.
As one of the first communities to be founded by escaped formerly enslaved Afro-Venezuelans known as cimarrones, here in the Barlovento town of Curiepe, the tambor represents much more than just musical heritage.
There were many problems when Curiepe was being founded. Curiepe was razed to the ground 3 times by Spanish hands. It wasn't in their interests for a town to be founded by free black men and women. They brought many enslaved men and women from many different parts of Africa to Venezuela. So in order for them to communicate, to be able to talk without being understood or be seen by the Spanish, they used drums as a code.
The region is most famous for the musical and religious festival known as San Juan, traditionally held on the 23rd of June, when ordinary life is temporarily paralysed, giving way to 2 days of drums, music and dancing in the streets.
The repression of the Spanish was so strong that they only gave the enslaved population 3 days of freedom a year. During those 3 days, the enslaved Afro-Venezuelans played the tambor, and this was the festival of San Juan. They used those 3 days to play tambor. Those were 3 days of pleasure, of euphoria, of liberty and rest. Some even died. They killed themselves so that they didn't have to go back to the oppression of the Spanish, you see? That is the symbology of the tambors, of the festival of San Juan.
Although they were introduced to Venezuela hundreds of years ago, the vibrations of the drums continue to provide a constant musical backdrop for all aspects of life in these Caribbean towns. As a local drum maker in the community of Mamporal, Nicolas Palacios says that his interaction with tambores has shaped his entire life.
I love tambors so much that I said to myself, right, I'm going to learn to play. My dad played the tambor, may he rest in peace. He played many different types of tambors, everything. And as an intrepid young boy, I was really stubborn about learning. When I was 15, I saw a tambor which had been taken apart and I said, I'm going to put it together. So I assembled it. It didn't turn out brilliantly because it was my first time.
For Palacios, the sound of the tambor narrates the histories and stories of the communities who call the region their home.
We are really trying hard to make sure that the youth fall in love with the tambor, that they fall in love with tambor culture, our traditions, so they don't get lost. That's what we want. These tambors are from Africa. For example, these are from the Bantu people. Previously, they didn't put a drum skin on them. They were just huge strings which, when they were beaten, were used as a way of communicating between one place and another. They communicated a spirit of black rebellion which many town inhabitants say is just as strong today.
Tambors are part of our history of runaway enslaved black men and women. They are part of that rebellion and that cultural legacy. The curiepe of that era, of our ancestors and the enslaved Afro-Venezuelans who were kidnapped. The tambors were left to us as a cultural heritage. That's why we identify so strongly with tambors.
Por eso es que nosotros nos identificamos mucho con los tambores.
Mercedes Sosa was an internationally acclaimed Argentinian musician that composed melodies that gave a voice to the voiceless. Here's our homage to her talent. Enjoy. Five years have passed since the death of Latin American cultural icon, singer Mercedes Sosa. To celebrate her life and her legacy, the Mercedes Sosa Foundation and the Center of Marxist Studies of the Communist Party of Argentina have organized the third Mercedes Sosa Folk Art Festival. It will not only feature live music, but also lectures and discussions. Mercedes wasn't only a singer, she was a communist activist.
Hecho de cuerdas y tendones, un revoltijo de carne con madera.
Compañeros todos juntos reunidos.
What for us back then was a dream, my mom was able to achieve while still alive, and that is to have all these presidents gathered together and headed in one direction. It was a joy for her to see. This also means that the people and their struggles, who have always been so close in the militant struggle, today also see that their presidents, their musicians, and their culture are all starting to have one direction. It is a strong movement, and we assume it is unstoppable. Evo Morales shows us that this is so.
Y asumimos que imparable, está Evo para demostrar que esto es así.
Un instrumento sin mejores pretensiones, lucecitas montadas para escena. Qué cosa fuera, corazón, qué cosa fuera, la masa sin cantera.
I can't remember from exactly what age, but I've listened to her music since I was a girl. I always recall that her way of saying things, the way she pronounced each word in such a bold way, had such strong messages. This affected me a lot, and it's what we want to continue with. We want to get the same message across.
De poder llevar ese mensaje.
Mercedes Sosa fue un legado.
Mercedes Sosa was a legacy to us starting many years ago. She was such an important figure when she returned from exile. Before that too, but I can't comment much on her time before her exile because I didn't know her before then. But when she returned from exile in 1982, we had the luck of performing alongside her, and after having so much fear due to the dictatorship, I went into exile too. We were all scared and used to think, what will happen now if Mercedes comes back? But in the end, we all got on with it, and she ended up being an icon of democracy. We didn't believe in the military because of their genocide and because we couldn't trust them, and we didn't believe in the politicians either because they didn't have any power. But Mercedes' comeback show after her exile in the Opera Theatre in Buenos Aires in '82 was so important that from then on we started to believe in democracy again. This is why I say that Mercedes is an icon of our democracy, of the advent of our democracy.
Por eso yo cuando digo de Mercedes, ella es un ícono de nuestra democracia, del advenimiento de la democracia, ¿no? O sea, ves que fue importante ya en el año 82, ¿no?
Están los que resisten y nunca se lamentan, los que dicen yo para qué vivo, los que recuperan rápido sus fuerzas, los que luchan por lo que perdimos. Hay quien sucumbe y se levanta, hay quien queda allí siempre tendido, hay quien te ayuda a despegar y los que nunca te reconocen cuando estás vencido.
Thanks for watching. Next week we'll visit an outdoor opera festival and the house of an Ecuadorian artist you won't want to miss. See you then.